Hello and welcome back for another edition of American Voices. Today, I have a dynamic young man in the studio, Kenneth Bell. He's running for District 3 in the city of El Paso for City Council. Kenneth, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Paul. Pleasure to be here.
Man, I have seen your hustle out in the community. I am so impressed. Looking at your website, amazing job. Justice, integrity, selfless service. And I'm going to start off before you tell us a little bit about yourself. Kenneth, uh, thank you for running, first of all. It takes a lot of guts, it takes stamina, it takes really great character, and you have all of that. I've seen it out there in the trail, I've seen it in the community, so congratulations for that. It takes a really great person to run in 2024. And I think other people have recognized that. So let me start off with some of your endorsees. On the national scale, run for something. On the national scale, vote vets. All right? Locally, you got Justicia Fronteriza, Tejano Democrats, Stonewall Democrats, East Side Democrats, and Paso del Norte Tejano Democrats. Kenneth, congratulations, man.
Yeah, it's not even all of them
Well, are there more? You've got to tell us more. They're not on your website yet.
because they keep coming in. I just found out I got the El Paso Young Democrats endorsement.
Nice.
I got the Black El Paso Democrats endorsements, and on the state level, I got the Texas Progressive Caucus.
That's right. I remember hearing about that. So you have local, state, and federal recognition. So Kenneth, how do you feel? How does the race going? And with that, tell us about yourself. Introduce yourself to the El Paso electorate.
So, hey everyone, my name is Kenneth Bell. I'm an Army veteran, community organizer, graduate of University of Texas at El Paso, and I am the next city council representative for District 3.
Go Miners.
Yep, go Miners, picks up. So,
You're the hero in this story.
right.
You're the guy. I'm reading your website. You've got to add those other endorsements, by the way. And I know it's hard to keep up. You've been doing a lot of this on your own. And I will say, I've been doing my research. You've raised about 10K. The last numbers I saw, and that was maybe a couple of weeks ago from the last filing, for a city race in El Paso with 5 people running. That's fantastic. So I commend you, and it's not over yet. I know you have a fundraiser later tonight, so we're working to get you some more cash, right?
Right, absolutely. I just want to reiterate about the donations that I'm getting, all small dollar donations. I'm capping my own contribution limits to $1,000, so I will not accept more than $1,000 from any individual. And I think that's important to note because a lot of times you see a lot of dysfunction on city councils, not just in El Paso, but throughout the country. And we wonder why people are voting the way they're voting, they're reacting the way they're reacting, why it feels like they're ignoring their constituents. And a lot of that has to do with who's funding their campaigns. So if you're getting, 2,500, 5,000, 10,000, 30,000 from a handful of, wealthy individuals, guess what? When you get elected, you're going to be in their pocket, whether you realize it or not. And so I believe in campaign contribution limits. It's one of the tenets of my platform. And so before I can work to impose that on a citywide level, I have to impose that on myself. So again, I've capped my contributions at $1,000 per individual, and I've still managed to raise, as much money as I have. And out of all the 5 candidates, I've got the most individual contributions.
That's fantastic. You mentioned the issues, and I will say, as far as campaign finance, we need that on the federal level. So I applaud you for doing that here in El Paso City, because a lot of folks don't know this. As a political scientist, I'm always sharing that. It's not the same across the country. So you can go to a township, you can go to a commonwealth, you can go to a city, you can go to these different places, right? And they're each going to have and carve out their own idea about what that means. And in another show we just did for American Voices, we were talking about that on the federal level, how these billionaires are coming in flush with cash and really working to influence in a negative way, right? The election and spewing lies and just disinformation, misinformation. And I know as an Army veteran, that doesn't sit well with you. So let's talk about that. Key issues you have speaking about taxes, public safety, the economy, and infrastructure. Talk to us about that. What would you do for taxes in the city of El Paso?
So a lot of the property taxes increases and has been driven by certificates of obligations,
Right.
especially for non-emergencies, which I am staunchly against. Certificates of obligations were designed for emergencies like flooding, like earthquakes, where there's massive damage.
Right. Well, we had the 100-year flood. I was here, and
Right.
yeah. So that's what it's for.
The problem is city council in the past has used them for non-emergencies, using them for projects that should be funded under the general fund or funded through grants. And a lot of that was driven by the previous city manager who's no longer in El Paso. And so now El Paso is about 2 billion in debt. And so we need to get away from using certificates of obligations for non-emergencies, which is why I'm committed to voting against all certificates of obligations for non-emergencies, because that drives up your property taxes. So a lot of people are feeling it, especially our seniors who are on fixed income.
Right. Well, we know with the HOTS tax, I mean, it's one of the highest in the country and the highest in the state, right? So where Austin and San Antonio and other cities that have tourism, economy dollars coming in, and we're tapped out. So our HOTS tax is crazy. So thank you for being a fiscal conservative in that regard. So that's what you're going to do on city council. It sounds really good. How about public safety? Tell us, what you think about that. I just got back, by the way, from Michigan and Pennsylvania, and I always enjoy being an ambassador for El Paso. I enjoy that because I get a chance to share with someone, whether it's at a restaurant or a bar or some event, that the border is safe and that Fort Bliss is here and that our military are here and all the other elements of our security. But I'm raising a family here. I wouldn't keep my family here if I thought that people were jumping over the fence and, causing havoc. So tell us about public safety and what would you do to continue to keep us one of the safest cities in America?
Right. Just to reiterate, El Paso is one of the safest cities in America. It has been for a long time. And oftentimes, this narrative about danger and the border has been driven by media misinformation, by right wing conservative media who are just really looking for a lead that bleeds, something that gives shock value so to keep their viewers glued to their television sets and keep the advertising dollars coming in. But it's 100% false. Like, I grew up outside of DC in the 90s when people were doing more shooting than shopping in the malls, when it was truly dangerous.
Yeah.
This is nothing like that at all.
Yeah. I mean, we have a safe community, right? So, speak to us about, you're going to be working in city council for crime prevention. I know that you talked about having more cops on the street, but part of the problem is the fact that we cannot keep up with the hiring. So what would you do in terms of salaries, the academies that are online right now, and new people, attracting new people into our services? We have, police, fire, emergency services. What would you do to bring that to the city?
So recently, the city has changed their pay structure to make it more lucrative for new recruits to come in. In the past, they were paid very little, but now they're starting off like I believe it's like around 60,000 a year, give or take, once they've finished the academy. And just to reiterate, El Paso Police Department's academy is one of the few academies that actually pays their trainees. So that's definitely something that will attract more folks. But one of the things that the city has done this year, actually, they have an agreement with Fort Bliss, whereas if a soldier is within 12 months of their ETS date, they don't have to wait until they get out of the military to join the police academy. They can actually join during those last 12 months. So ETS date is the date that your military contract ends. Yeah, your ending service terms. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, military link up.
That's okay. We got to, inform the public. That's what we're doing here. So
Right.
that's good.
Right. And so one of the ways we can, again, keep them here is, again, recruiting from the military, but also making sure that after we train them, that we keep them there. So we have, recapture clause.
You gotta
Yeah,
have retention,
yeah, and just recapture clauses in our contract. So if a police officer wants to leave to another city, that city needs to reimburse us for their training, because it takes approximately 5 years to recuperate the cost of training them through the academy. But also, just to attract younger people and more people to the academy, one of the things we can do is having work study programs with the fire department, with the police department for our high school seniors. Like when I was in high school, our work study program, we had it with the local fire department. You could be a junior cadet, and the fire department was right down the hill from the school. So yeah, I think just really getting people in communication and having them see what it's like being a police officer, being a firefighter, being an EMT. Because again, you're not going to get everything from the media. They want to sensationalize things. They want to turn a molehill into a mountain. And so to really understand what our first responders do, you have to actually be in close proximity to them.
Well, I know one of the things that you spoke about before is addressing poverty and mental health. So, I've been out in the community. I was out at Madeline Park the other day, and there was someone who was kind of talking in the wind and talking and just to himself and talking to the trees. And, he was clearly a little high, right? We know that fentanyl is out there. We know that we want to be able to educate our young people and make sure that they are staying clear of drugs. One hit can kill, and all these things. What are you planning to do with our fire and police to be able to broaden that out in terms of having a mental health patrols be able to de-escalate an issue like that, where you're not going to have the police come over and arrest someone right away, or even worse, have some violent interaction.
Right. So with that, we have a crisis intervention team, and we really need to make sure that we expand that crisis intervention team so that they're out there answering, mental health crises. Because one of the things that sadly happens in our country, not just here but throughout, is that we're criminalizing mental health issues. We see a person who's, talking in the wind, and we think that they're committing a criminal act when really they're just suffering from a mental health episode. Now, whether it's just a temporary episode or whether they suffer some.
Or they've used some drugs or something, or a combination, right? So we don't know what's going on.
Police are not trained for that, but our crisis intervention teams are trained for that. They're mental health professionals who are able to identify those issues and take the correct course of action. Because some of these folks out here, they're a danger to themselves. They also might be a danger to other people, but they don't deserve to be, to be harmed. It's just a matter of having the right people there to assess and control the situation. And this is especially prevalent in our homeless shelters. I spoke with a gentleman who worked at the Opportunity Center for Homeless folks, not too far from here. And the homeless shelters are the ones who are most likely to utilize crisis intervention services because some of their residents suffer from schizophrenia. And so we definitely need to make sure that we have those people there, because they not only protect the person having that mental health episode, they also protect the police and they protect the city from lawsuits. Because if one incident happens, someone pulls out their phone, it's on social media, and now the city's getting sued. They have to go to court or settle out of court, and it's going to cost the taxpayers a lot of money. So it's just a matter of taking preventative measures.
So if we invest on the front end with crisis intervention and having more of these teams in our police and fire and emergency services, we can mitigate that, right? We can put that off. That's great. That's great. Another hot topic right now, especially at the federal level, here in El Paso County, we're having our city election, right? In the city of El Paso, excuse me. So this year we're having our mayor's race. Of course, you're running, and there are 7 open seats, 6 for city council, and the 7th being the mayor's race. We're anticipating that there's going to be 3 to 5 runoffs, okay? The migrant crisis is one of those, and the issues with migrants. Can you speak to that in current terms? Here we are, October 16th, about 3 weeks out from the election. What do you see the city has done well, and what do you see the city can do better?
The migrant crisis is an issue that is near and dear to me because I've actually worked on this here in El Paso and overseas in Central America, where many of the migrants come from. So
This was during your military service, correct?
yes, I did a 9-month rotation in Guatemala. So I worked with the U.S. Embassy, Guatemalan government. We did a lot of humanitarian missions, humanitarian projects to mitigate the causes of. Yeah. Oh yeah. It was. Some of it's like heartbreaking when you see some of the conditions that these folks are living in and what they're trying to escape. But to answer the question, one of the things that we have done well is working with Annunciation House and these other not nonprofit and non-government organizations who are
Yeah, the NGOs, the different church organizations, right? The Baptist church, the Protestant church, a bunch of them are.
right, and they've provided shelters for many of the migrants who are seeking asylum. And one of the things I do need to mention is that these organizations are only permitted to provide services to migrants who have come in legally to requesting asylum. Yeah, because a lot of people are saying that they're just providing services for illegals and they're giving them checks at the border, and it's a bunch of nonsense.
Absolutely.
And so, one of the things we need to continue doing is we had to work with our congresswoman to ensure that federal funds are being used to solve this crisis, because ultimately this is a federal issue. And if local funds are being used, that we're getting reimbursed. But ultimately, this is a humanitarian issue. It's not a criminal issue. These folks are not an invading army. I know what an army looks like. These are people who are escaping destitute poverty.
Right.
And America has always been welcoming of immigrants looking for a better life.
So let's be clear. There's no invasion here. They're not overtaking our hospitals or hotels. They're coming here through a legal process. And as I've traveled the country, it's refreshing for someone like you to say that, Kenneth, because you're speaking truth, and I appreciate that so much. It's great to come home and be able to listen to voices of reason. We talk about reasonable people. I said, look at the numbers. So currently, under the Biden-Harris administration, we're at the lowest number of immigrants crossing in the United States. So at this time, that's where we are, and the border remains to be a safe place. Now, we have quotas in the country. So there's a war going on right now in Ukraine, right? There's the war going on, Israel and Gaza. There's different conflicts around the world. And so what American people and what our citizens need to know here in El Paso is that there are quotas, right? You can't just enter the country because you want to just move to the United States of America. So that's not the way the process works, and it's very difficult. But we know Congress also needs to vote on this, and the former president decided, well, we're not going to do that, right? I mean, there's been multiple, there's legislation already in a bipartisan way ready to go in Congress. And they play a supportive role for you in city council and our county government. And I will say here in El Paso, there's a great relationship between the city and the county. And so y'all work very, very well together in our community. And so I applaud you. I think you're going to do great with that issue when you get on city council. Moving forward, how about the economy? There's the brain drain issue. So what are you suggesting, Kenneth, to keep people here and to attract people into our community?
So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the brain drain, because throughout this campaign trail, one question I always ask our audience is how many people here are under the age of 40? I've never seen more than 10 hands go up. And that's because a lot of the younger folks, my generation and Gen Z, are leaving El Paso. Like, they're going to Austin, they're going to Denver, they're going to Dallas or Phoenix for search of jobs. And so we need to bring jobs here to El Paso, jobs that pay living wages, jobs that are going to hire El Paso workers and not just importing workers from other states. And that's kind of the
Or around the country.
or around the country. Yeah, that's kind of
Or around the world.
yeah, because that's kind of the issue they're having in Austin. Like, these tech companies are moving to Austin, but they're bringing their California workforce with them, and so that's not really helping the Austin population. It's just these tech companies are getting something for nothing.
Yeah.
And so we need metric-based incentives to ensure that if we're going to attract them here, if we're going to offer incentives, that they need to, one, offer a certain amount of jobs at a living wage.
So, for instance, they've got to hire 50% local talent or 25%. That's what you're saying, right? So they can't just bring all their people in from outside.
Right.
They've got to hire some people locally if they're accredited, if they have the intelligence, if they have the degrees and all that, right?
Right.
To keep them here.
Right. And the wages have to be, living wages. So not, a $10.
Is $7.25 a living wage, Kenneth? Okay, I'm just checking.
No, we're done with the call center jobs that that pay, $7.25 an hour or $7.26 to be a.
But if you're bilingual, you get an extra quarter.
Yeah, I mean that's ridiculous.
En serio. Come on.
Right. So yeah, we need.
Look, we've got Amazon that came here. We're in the middle of Spaceport America and Blue Origin. So, UTEP, your alma mater, didn't they just receive a big chunk of money from the Biden-Harris administration? Right? Was it $400 million for their new aerospace center? Did I get that right?
Well, from what I've been told, what was it? The president, Heather Wilson, has rejected it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Maybe she did. Maybe that's why they're calling for her to move along.
I know she rejected something in regards to the aerospace.
I don't think it was aerospace money, but we have to look into that.
Okay.
But the point is, we're in the Mecca, right? We're in the middle of all this between New Mexico and what's happening in West Texas. And to your point, Kenneth, we need to be able to bring industries here. We need to bring high-paying tech industries here. The maquilas came and went. That was supposed to reinforce and build up the border back in the Clinton era, and then the Mexicans decided that they could internalize that. They found a loophole, so we need to bring that back and create the proper incentives to keep jobs here.
Right. Yeah, and UTEP has one of the best engineering programs in the country.
Absolutely.
So we absolutely have the talent here.
Yeah.
And what's happening is that our talent is leaving. And so there's a lot of different industries that we could bring to El Paso. For example, biomedical industry. We have biomedical research here. We can also do, medical device manufacturing here. Also, because of our proximity to the border, also between East and West United States, we are a transportation hub. So a lot of people feel that we're look at us as like a drive-through city. We're not. We are a hub that connects West United States to East United States. We connect the northern United States to the border. And so we are, like you said, the Mecca. We're the center of the U.S. right here in El Paso, and it's high time that we show the world that part of us.
Absolutely. This tri-state area, we speak about in economic development all the time. I think some of the business people have that figured out, but between our neighbors to the south in Mexico, Juarez, right, Chihuahua, here in El Paso, and of course, our partners in New Mexico, there are millions and millions of people living here, and so we need to keep them here and grow this economy in a respectful and proper way, not gunshot, but just in a respectful and proper way. And I think by offering the right incentives, we can attract those businesses. So the last point I want to discuss, then we need to talk about early voting because it's happening now. Right. Infrastructure. Running for city council, this is really critical. Streets, drainage, all of that. I know that there's, again, on the federal dollars that have come in, the infrastructure bill that's out there, and other bills that have come in to improve internet, to improve connectivity for lower income communities. That's a part of our infrastructure. Speak about that. I know the proper use of federal dollars, it takes a proper city council to be able to distribute those dollars once we get them. So speak to us about your plan to prioritize street repair, sidewalks, and all of that.
Like as you mentioned, we need the right city council to distribute these dollars. There are some parts of the city where streets are well maintained and they're pristine, and then there are other.
All the lights work.
All the lights work. All
Yeah.
the sidewalks are there. They exist.
There's flowers on the median.
And then there's some parts of the city where our streets have not been repaved since Jimmy Carter was president.
Who just cast his vote today.
Yeah, I read that. 100 years old. Congratulations, Jimmy.
That's right. I think he's voting for Harris Walls.
I'm pretty sure.
That's
That's a safe bet.
Yeah, all right, go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Happy birthday, Jimmy Carter, President Carter. All right, go ahead.
Well, Kamala Harris's birthday was like 2 days ago, so happy birthday, President-elect Harris.
There you go.
So we have streets like, for example, Pebble Hills Boulevard. It's a bumpy ride from start to finish, but that's not even the worst street. You go south of I-10, like near Hunter's Lane, the Ranchland area. Many of those streets are just in terrible condition. There's one street in particular they call Patch Street because it's just patches from decades of filling in the potholes. And then you get down to Cedar Grove, which is near Border Express Highway. There's a street, I believe it's called Pole Lane, that has never been paved. It's just a dirt road. I spoke to a gentleman there. He's 60 years old. He said his dad has been waiting his entire life for that street to be paved. It never happened. And now he's not sure if that street will be paved within his lifetime. So it's about equity with our street repairs. There's no reason why we should have some streets that are great and some streets that are just complete crap.
Well, there's one thing I've learned about you, Kenneth, is you are a go-getter. You are not afraid to put your voice out there and to make sure, there's that old phrase, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So that's what I think happens, but there's also the money. You follow the money, you follow where people live, but it takes everybody to be at the table for planning and community services. And so I think with you in the helm for District 3, you'll get that street paved on Pole Avenue. Well, let's move to early voting. Early voting starts on the 21st. There's mail-in ballots already going in. I think you spoke about that earlier. Someone just, mailed in their ballot for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's one down. All right. I don't know what your win number. We won't talk about that. But what do you want to say about early voting and what you're anticipating?
So early voting starts October 21st. That's next Monday. Goes through November the 1st. And then election day is November the 5th. And so everyone, get out there and vote. Okay, this is an important election, not just at the federal level, not just at the congressional level, but here locally, because all politics is local, right? Local politics that decides whether your streets are in pristine condition or crap. Local elections determine whether or not your son, your children, or your grandchildren have jobs so that they can actually afford to live in the city they grew up in, and it's also going to decide your quality of life overall.
Absolutely. I mean, in order for us to have the best quality of life, we can't call a street corner and throw some grass on it and call it a park. It's got to have real quality of life issues with walking trails and water and restrooms and a place for our furry pets.
Right. And we have to maintain our parks too. It's not just enough to build it. We have to constantly maintain it. There are some parks in my district that they look nice from a distance, but when you get up close, the stickers are there. So the furry pets, they get hurt when they're stepping on them. If kids fall down while they're playing, they get stuck with stickers. So we need to constantly maintain those to keep our parks in great condition so that families can have a place for recreation.
Absolutely, absolutely. A place everyone can go is epcountyvotes.com. There's a sample ballot there for you. Look down on that and look for the city of El Paso. There you will find the information. We have our guest in the studio right now, Kenneth Bell. He's running for City Council District 3. There are 4 other people that are running. Kenneth, I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for your time. Again, thank you for running. One last word for the people. What do you want to tell people about the importance of voting as a veteran?
As a veteran, I fought for your rights, and so it's on you to exercise those rights. Okay, a lot of people love to complain, but they don't do anything when the time comes. This is the time. This is the place. All right, cast your ballot. All right, please go out and vote. Right, it is not only your constitutional right, it is your civic duty. And to learn more about me, you can go to my website, kennethbelltx.com. You can read my platform in its entirety. You can read my entire bio. You can also follow me on social media. Facebook is Kenneth Bell for City Council District 3. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Kenneth Bell TX. So thank you for having me here.
Kenneth, it's been a pleasure. If you like what you heard here on American Voices, support this young man, Kenneth Bell, for City Council El Paso District 3. Kenneth, thank you so much. Thank you again for your service, and good luck in the election.
Thank you.